The night was dark and misty when Sarah, Mike, Lisa, and John embarked on a road trip through the desert. It was a weekend getaway they had been looking forward to for months. Eager to escape the routine of the city, they decided to explore a remote and mysterious area known as the Serpent Road. Rumors on the road said that strange things happened at night, but the four friends' curiosity was stronger than their fear. Sarah was behind the wheel with Mike at her side, while Lisa and John got into the back seat. The road was narrow, surrounded by twisted bushes that seemed to hide dark secrets. As they advanced, the air grew heavy, and the silence was oppressive. The only lights were the car's headlights, which cut through the darkness like sharp blades. "Did you guys hear about the disappearances on that road?" Mike commented, trying to ease the tension. "Mike, don't start with horror stories now." "We're here to have fun," Lisa replied with a nervous smile. However, the road didn't seem to agree with Lisa. Soon, the car began to shake violently, as if they were driving over something uneven on the asphalt. Sarah braked the car sharply. "What the hell was that?" she asked, looking at the other three with a frightened expression. John examined the map they had brought with them. "There's nothing marked on the map about road problems. Maybe it was just a pothole." But Sarah didn't seem convinced. The shaking had been too intense to be caused by a simple pothole in the road. She looked at the other three, her eyes showing concern. "Should we continue? The road is strange and scary, but it's also our only route to the camp," she said. After a brief discussion, they decided to continue the journey, but everyone was restless. The remainder of the trip passed without notable incident. The moon was hidden behind the clouds, casting a faint light over the desert, making the landscape even more eerie. Finally, they arrived at the camp. The place was isolated and surrounded by tall, shady trees. They set up their tents and lit a fire, hoping the heat and light would provide some comfort. Sitting around the fire, they began to relax and enjoy the moment. Mike took out his guitar and started playing some songs, while Lisa and John told funny stories about their childhoods. The tension of the trip there seemed to have dissipated. However, the night sky remained overcast, and a sense of unrest still hung in the air. The four friends felt that they were not alone in that remote place. The sounds of the night, the strange noises of the forest, and the shadows dancing in the firelight created an atmosphere of suspense. Sarah noticed it first, a soft, unsettling sound approaching from the darkness of the forest. It was like a low whisper, almost inaudible, but it seemed to get clearer as it got closer to the camp. She interrupted Mike's music, and everyone fell silent, listening to the increasingly disturbing sound. Suddenly, the tree branches began to move, and a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was a tall, slender shadow that moved nimbly through the forest. The friends watched with wide eyes as the figure approached the fire. It was a man, or at least he looked like one. He wore torn, dirty clothes, with a vacant, troubled look in his eyes. Sarah asked hesitantly, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The man didn't respond. Instead, he just looked at them with a blank stare and started muttering unintelligible words. It was as if he was in a trance, unable to communicate coherently. The atmosphere in the camp became tense. They didn't know whether to call authorities or simply drive the man away. That's when a shrill, chilling sound echoed in the forest, making everyone jump. Sarah, her nerves on edge, said, "We need to get out of here now. Something's not right." Without delay, they hurriedly dismantled the camp, leaving behind the strange and frightening figure that seemed to have come out of the depths of the desert. As they drove back along the Snake Road, the feeling that they were being watched never left them. The beginning of the journey had only been the prelude to something much more sinister that awaited them in the shadows of the night. Dark night swallowed the Snake Road as the car sped away from the disturbing encounter at the camp. The storm that seemed to be brewing in the distant distances was approaching, and the first drops of rain began to hit the windshield. "This trip is getting weirder and weirder," John commented, looking up at the heavy clouds. Lisa, who was sitting in the back seat, felt a chill run down her spine. "Did you notice how empty that man looked? Like there was no one there?" Mike, who was sitting next to Sarah, nodded. "Yes, that was very strange. I can't forget those empty eyes." As they discussed the bizarre encounter, the car continued to speed down the dark road, taking them deeper and deeper into the desert. The rain increased, making the roads slippery and dangerous. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to maintain control of the vehicle. Suddenly, the car's headlights started flashing and then went out completely. Darkness took over them, leaving them in shock and silence. Sarah tried to turn on the headlights several times, but they remained off. "What the hell is going on?" exclaimed John, looking around in the dark. Mike took out his cell phone and activated the flashlight. The dim light illuminated the interior of the car, revealing the tense faces of the friends. Sarah tried to start the car again, but the engine refused to respond. "We're in the middle of the desert, with no power and a broken-down car." "This is getting worse and worse," Lisa said, with a hint of panic in her voice. Suddenly, a strange noise echoed outside the car. It was a loud and unsettling scratching sound, as if something was scratching the bodywork. Everyone looked outside, but in the complete darkness, they couldn't see anything. The tension in the car reached its peak when the friends felt the vehicle shaking again, as if something was walking around. Mike shined his flashlight at the window, and what they saw chilled the blood in their veins. Outside, there were several scratch marks on the car's bodywork, like deep claws. Sarah grabbed a camping knife from the center console, holding it tightly as her anxiety grew. Suddenly, the back door of the car began to shake, and an inhuman sound echoed outside. It was like a mix of a moan and a growl. Sarah turned on the car radio, hoping to get some help, but all she got was static. The feeling that something terrible was about to happen took over everyone. Lisa, her voice shaking, murmured, "We can't stay here. We need to get out of the car and find help." Sarah agreed, and with the knife in hand, they opened the car doors and got out cautiously, keeping their cell phone flashlights on. The rain fell relentlessly, soaking them immediately. The noise of the storm drowned out all other sounds. The friends examined the car for clues, but found nothing other than deep scratches on the bodywork. The feeling of being watched still hung in the air, but they could see nothing in the darkness and rain. They decided to walk along the road, looking for help or a sign of life. The rain continued to fall, making visibility even worse. They walked for miles, but found no sign of human life. The storm seemed to never end, and the situation became increasingly desperate. Lisa began to cry, and Mike tried to keep the group's spirits up, but his own nerves were frayed. Finally, after hours of walking in darkness and rain, they saw a faint light in the distance. It was an old, lonely cabin on the side of the road. Hope lit up in their hearts as they ran towards the cabin, hoping to find help and shelter. But what they would find inside was more terrifying than anything they had faced before. The old cabin stood on the side of the road, looking completely out of place in the darkness of the desert. Its wooden trunks were worn and blackened with age, and the windows looked empty and gloomy. As the friends approached the cabin, the rain steadily falling on them, they noticed something ominous. The door was ajar. Cautiously, they pushed the door open to enter the hut. Its interior was as dark as the night outside. The sound of rain hitting the tin roof created an unsettling cacophony. Mike turned on his cell phone's flashlight once again, illuminating the dark environment. The cabin's dusty furniture and decaying decor suggested that no one had lived in it for years. The feeling of discomfort grew as they went deeper, and Lisa murmured, "This doesn't feel right, guys." Sarah nodded, keeping her camping knife ready. "Let's quickly check for any signs of life here and then leave." As they explored the cabin, they noticed some broken candles and mysterious murals adorning the walls. They looked like strange and sinister rituals, or symbols that were completely incomprehensible. They also found a door at the back of the cabin that appeared to lead to a basement. Mike, who was more nervous than ever, hesitated. "I don't know if we should go to the basement. It could be dangerous." But a dark curiosity took hold of them. The idea of discovering what was hidden in the depths of that ancient cabin seemed almost irresistible. Sarah cautiously pulled open the cellar door, revealing a narrow, steep staircase leading into darkness. She went down first, followed by Mike, Lisa, and John. Cell phone flashlights illuminated the path, but the fear still persisted. When they reached the basement, they found a scene that took everyone's breath away. The space was filled with strange objects, all seemingly related to obscure practices and rituals. Lighted candles created dancing shadows on walls covered in arcane inscriptions. In the center of the room, there was a summoning circle, drawn in chalk. "This is crazy," John muttered, horrified. That was when a strange sound echoed from the corner of the basement. A tall, slender figure emerged from the shadows. His eyes glowed red, and a sinister smile curved his pale lips. It was the same creature they had encountered on the road. "You shouldn't be here," the creature whispered in a voice that seemed to echo inside their heads. A collective scream of panic filled the basement as the creature charged towards them. Sarah, overcome with fear, swung the camp knife, but the blade went straight through the creature as if it were made of smoke. The creature extended a distorted arm towards Lisa, who was closest, and touched her face. A shiver of terror ran through Lisa's body, and she fell to the floor, fainting. The creature smiled again, its red eyes shining with mischief. It was then that Mike and John grabbed Lisa and, together with Sarah, ran back to the stairs. They climbed as fast as they could, with the creature chasing them relentlessly. When they emerged into the cabin, they sealed the cellar door behind them, but they knew that wouldn't hold them back for long. The rain continued to fall outside. The storm was at its peak. Desperate to find a way out, the friends turned their attention to the windows. And that's when they noticed a familiar figure outside. The man they had met on the road with empty eyes was now outside the cabin. His face was contorted into a macabre smile, and he banged on the windows hard, leaving dirty handprints on their glass. Sarah looked to her friends, looking for a solution. "We need to get out of here. We have no choice. Maybe we can run to the road and try to get help." They prepared to leave, but when they opened the cabin door, the creature was there, waiting for them with a sickly smile. There was nowhere to run. The man with empty eyes continued to knock on the windows, looking more like a puppet controlled by unknown forces than a human being. The creature approached slowly, its red eyes glowing as rain fell incessantly. The friends were surrounded, trapped in a cabin in the middle of the desert, with the empty man outside and the creature approaching. Their desperation was palpable, and they knew the fight for survival was just beginning. The cabin in the middle of the desert seemed like a nightmare from which there was no escape. Sarah, Mike, Lisa, and John were trapped. The rain fell incessantly, the storm raging as if the sky itself was outraged by the presence of the horror unfolding there. Lisa, who had passed out in the basement, began to regain consciousness, although her vision was still blurred. When he saw the situation around him, he felt a deep chill run down his spine. The words barely managed to escape her trembling lips. What's going on?" Sarah, panting, looked at her. "Lisa, we're trapped. There's something out there and something in here. We need to find a way out of this." Mike took out his cell phone and tried to make an emergency call, but there was no signal. The cabin seemed to be in some kind of otherworldly bubble, isolated from the outside world. The creature, getting closer and closer, stretched its distorted hands towards the door, touching it with an icy touch. Sarah picked up her camping knife again, prepared to face whatever came her way. Lisa, her eyes filled with dread, looked at the blank figure of the man outside and then at the creature. An idea began to appear in his mind. "I can't believe I'm going to suggest this, but maybe we can negotiate with them," Lisa said, her voice shaking. Mike looked at her in disbelief. "Negotiate? With what?" They seemed completely irrational. Lisa continued. The man with the empty eyes, he was in a trance. And the creature, maybe it wants something. Maybe there is a way to calm them down. As they discussed this idea, the situation inside the hut deteriorated even further. The creature advanced, its red eyes glowing with sinister hunger. The man outside continued to knock on the windows, and his murmurs became increasingly disturbing. Finally, Lisa decided to act. She walked out of the cabin with hesitant steps towards the empty man outside. "Hi," he said in a shaky voice. Are you okay?" The man turned his head towards Lisa, his empty eyes fixed on her. He mumbled incomprehensible words, but she could see there was sadness in his eyes. Lisa continued to speak, maintaining a calm tone. "We don't want to hurt you. We want to understand what's going on here. Can you help us?" The creature, which was now right by the door, seemed uncertain about the situation. Her gnarled hands reached toward Lisa, but she didn't back away. And then, something incredible happened. The empty man gestured with his hand, pointing toward the cabin, and muttered a single word, "Escape." Lisa understood. He wanted them to get away from there. She ran back inside the cabin and shared the information with the others. "He wants us to run away," she said. "We don't know what's going on here, but he doesn't want to hurt us." Sarah looked out the window and saw the creature still hesitating outside. The decision has been made. They ran out of the cabin, leaving behind the nightmare they had faced. As they fled, the rain fell even more intensely, soaking them to the bone. The storm roared with fury as they ran down the Serpent Road, not looking back. The creature and the empty man watched from a distance, seeming to dissipate into the shadows of the night. The feeling of relief mixed with confusion as the friends escaped that cursed place. They finally managed to reach the main road, where a car passed by and stopped to pick them up. The person behind the wheel, a lone traveler, noticed the four friends drenched in frightened state. "What happened to you?" he asked as he led them back to civilization. They hesitated to tell the full story, knowing no one would believe what they had faced. They decided to say that they had a car problem and needed to flee the cabin during the storm. As they were dropped off at a safe gas station, the friends reflected on the terrifying night they had survived. Fear still echoed in their hearts, and the questions about what they had found on the Serpent Road remained unanswered. As the storm passed and the night calmed, they agreed to keep the truth about what they had experienced to themselves. Some secrets were best left in the shadows, where they belonged. And the journey down the Serpent Road became a haunting memory that would haunt them for the rest of their lives.